Well, welcome everyone to our Cohort 2 Professional Development Series. Very excited to have a group of our professionals here, some of our early childhood special education consultants and coordinators are going to be presenting on least restrictive environment in early childhood special education. So I'd like to introduce Suzanne Perry, who is one of our educational consultants. We also have Julie Giacconi, another one of our educational consultants. And we have Jackie Hersom, one of our early childhood special education coordinators, and Trisha Kurt here today, another one of our early childhood special education coordinators. So I am going to pass it over to Susie and the team, and they are going to present to you. Please put any questions that you might have in the chat, or we will also have time at the end for questions and answers.
All righty, let's see if I can get this all lined up here. Trying to get my notes in front of me. All righty, welcome. Today we are going to be talking about least restrictive environment in early childhood special education. And we have today some presenters and our team, as Sandy already introduced everybody, but I'll introduce them again. Sandy, our fearless leader, and Jackie Hersom from one of the coordinators, and Trish, coordinator, and Julie, and myself. So happy to be here and present this information today. Our topics will explore the critical role of least restrictive environment in Maine's transition of FAPE for 3 to 5-year-olds. The session topics will include free appropriate public education, the continuum of placement options, and least restrictive environment definitions. We're going to take a look at how LRE can be implemented in cohort SAUs and present key considerations for LRE decisions in IEP meetings. Afterward, we should have time for any questions that come up. So Julie is going to start us out with a review of FAPE and how the development of an appropriate individualized program is related to a child's educational outcomes.
Thank you, Susie. So FAPE, free and appropriate public education. Every child who has an IEP eligible for special education services under IDEA has the right to receive individualized special education and related services that are appropriately designed to meet their unique needs and provide access to the general education curriculum. So the services are provided at no cost to families under the supervision of the education system. And they're provided in such a way that the child is able to participate and make progress and receive educational benefit from being in the general education curriculum. So what does this look like in Maine? How does this apply to Maine? So schools are required to offer FAPE, free and appropriate public education, to each eligible preschool child who has an IEP. But it might look different in every community. So every community is different. So some communities will have available public pre-K programs. Some will have Head Starts. Some will have community-based early learning centers, childcare. And some may have kindergarten classrooms that have preschoolers in them. So again, FAPE looks different depending on the community and what is offered in that community. The IEP team looks at each child's needs, their goals, and services to ensure that a free and appropriate public education is provided in a mixed delivery system.
So the IDEA requires that each public agency ensure that children with disabilities are educated with children without disabilities. And removing children with disabilities from the regular education environment is appropriate only if the disability is such that education in regular classes cannot be achieved satisfactorily. So why is a regular setting preferred? Well, research shows that children with disabilities in inclusive classrooms are more likely to engage in peer interactions compared to children with disabilities who are in segregated settings. This finding is important since interactions with peers reduce young children's social isolation and provide opportunities to acquire social, language, and academic skills. The preferred learning environment for children is one in which they are educated alongside peers without disabilities, in a setting that offers a curriculum, materials, and age-appropriate activities. When children are removed from settings with typically developing peers, it is because doing so is the only way to provide an educational benefit for the child. If a child is removed from the general education setting, the IEP team must demonstrate that it is necessary to meet the child's educational needs. On this slide, we have a little graphic that shows the different preschool environments, the categories that are used by schools, and some definitions of those different categories. So when we send out the presentation, just know that you can click on this and we'll take you right to our website that has this really nice flyer or handout that represents the various settings for preschoolers. The IDEA also requires that a continuum of alternative placements is available to meet the needs of children with disabilities for special education and related services. This graphic represents the continuum of placement options that schools must make available if a child needs it. The continuum is organized from left to right, from the least restrictive to the most restrictive settings a child might need. Each movement to the right reduces access to non-disabled children. And as we have mentioned, access to children without disabilities is highly correlated with better outcomes. It turns out kids learn a lot from other kids. The IEP team engages in a decision-making process, starting with what would be required to deliver special education in a regular early childhood program with typical peers. Beneath each placement option is the related data code indicating the environment in which the child will receive their special education supports and services. These data codes are submitted to the state as children are enrolled. The data is used to track the percentage of children in the listed locations, and is also called Federal Indicator 6, Preschool Environments, which is then submitted to the U.S. Department of Education. Research shows that most children with appropriate supports and services can participate in and benefit from attending a regular early childhood program with typically developing peers, especially as 3, 4, and 5-year-olds.
So inclusion in a mixed delivery system. The goal is multi-pronged. To ensure children get the services that they need in high quality early learning environments that have been defined by, as established here in the state. So we know that there are a variety of early learning settings that are appropriate for preschool aged children, where they can receive their specially designed instruction in the least restrictive environment. I know the font here is a little small, but just some of the examples are blended classrooms, public preschool, home, Head Start, community-based preschool, childcare, playgroup, story hour, early childhood special education class, early childhood special education class with peers, licensed family child care home, etc. So You'll hear the term used, a regular or general early childhood education program. And typically what we mean by that is that the majority of children in the program do not have IEPs. And that is considered the least restrictive environment for a child to receive their specially designed instruction in.
So we'd like to provide some examples of the ways that SAUs might offer options along the continuum. This table presents the settings reported by schools along the continuum of placement options and connects these to real examples of preschool settings. Once a child is eligible for special education, the IEP team identifies the child's strengths, needs, goals, and services. The team then considers the most appropriate setting for the child from the continuum of placement options, which are listed here from least to most restrictive. The team decides whether the child's program can be successfully implemented in a regular or general education classroom, or if a more restrictive setting is needed. They start by considering how they would deliver the supports and services in the regular early childhood classroom. And this is a classroom where, as Julie said, the majority of children do not have a disability. An example of this setting could be a Head Start program with services delivered in the program, or a childcare classroom where the special ed services are delivered right in that classroom, or a school district public pre-K program with special ed services delivered right in the classroom. Moving down the continuum, if a child attends, for example, a Head Start program and the IEP team decides that a special education services need to be delivered in another location, such as a therapy setting for a service or a separate classroom for part of the day, it is more restrictive than all day with services in the regular setting. For the separate classroom, if this is an appropriate place on the continuum, it would be if the child could not make progress in a regular early childhood program, perhaps due to specialized learning needs. The children in this group do not attend any other regular program. For a separate school, some children might need to attend a separate school, such as a state-approved private day school, for example, the School for the Deaf, in an appropriate setting to meet their learning needs, not because of lack of staff or lack of facilities, or because it is where all children with a particular disability go, because that would not meet the appropriate clause in the definition of FAPE. Even a more restrictive setting is a child who cannot attend any program, perhaps due to health challenges. For example, brittle bone disease or immune system challenges. Delivery of special education services in the home might be the only way a child could benefit from their special education program. And finally, one of the most restrictive settings is the service provider location. This is when the child does not attend any other program and needs to travel to receive services outside of the home. For example, a child with Fragile X and a seizure disorder that requires weekly behavior management, physical and occupational therapy that is provided at a local clinic. Attending a regular program currently causes the child to engage in harmful self-injurious behaviors. While this may be improved over time, then the child's LRE could then be changed. So what we wanted to share was overall this continuum of placement options that we make available to children based on what their needs are as determined by the IEP team, and that includes the parents. And I think we have Jackie joining us to share a little bit about LRE and FAPE. Oh, no.
Can you switch slides, Susie?
Oh yeah, shoot, sorry.
Okay, so least restrictive environment, which we have been referring to as LRE, is a guiding principle in IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It plays a critical role in determining not only where a student will spend their time in school, but also how special education services will be provided. The term environment in least restrictive environment can be interpreted to imply that LRE is a place or location, but in fact, LRE does not merely refer to a particular setting. Identifying the LRE involves making decisions about what services and supports a student needs to be successful, and where and how those services and supports can be provided effectively. LRE is determined on a case-by-case basis during the development of the student's individualized education program. And during this process, the IEP team, a multidisciplinary group of professionals and students and parents, discuss what individualized program of instruction and related services the student requires based on their present levels of performance in areas of strengths and needs. These services and support should enable the students to make progress toward meeting identified academic or functional annual goals, be involved and make progress in the general education curriculum, as well as to participate in extracurricular activities, to take part in these activities with other students, both with and without disabilities. Specifically, the LRE requirement within IDEA necessitates that students with disabilities receive their education alongside their peers without disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate. Students should not be removed from the general education classroom unless learning cannot be achieved even with the use of supplementary aids and services. And then some takeaways we want you to take from this is that LRE should be individualized and promote progress with identified goals, allow for access, participation, and progress in the gen ed curriculum, provide access to peers without disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate, and it should not be based on availability of programs, SAU resources, or staffing convenience.
So let's take a look at how LRE decisions are made in IEP meetings. We've noted today that early childhood special education supports and services that are identified and necessary for the child to make progress in the curriculum are outlined in the IEP. The IEP describes the offer of FAPE and can be implemented in a variety of settings. The offer of a FAPE, as we have noted, must be at no cost to the parents. We recognize that families may need additional supports beyond what is offered as part of the preschool education program. For example, wraparound childcare. Attendance beyond what is outlined in the IEP may be funded by the state, but it remains the parent's responsibility.
So now we're going to talk about the IEP team discussion and the steps to identify the LRE. The IEP team engages in consultation with the family and seeks information about the child's current educational setting to see if the child is in a childcare setting or at home. They may then inquire about the child's daily routines and needs in the classroom or at home to gain a better understanding of the expectations. Their discussions with the family will also inquire about how the child needs to be supported to participate in his or her learning routines and activities. All of this information will contribute to the decision of the best setting for the child to make progress. So we have these. Number one, we have understanding the current setting. 2 is exploring child's daily routines and needs. 3 is considering supports and services. And 4 is deciding on the best setting for progress. Sorry, Susie.
No, I'm sorry.
All right. When we're talking about settings, there are a few appropriate factors to consider. Least restrictive, when we say that, is where we start on that left side of the continuum with a general ed setting, and then we consider supplemental supports and accommodations to make the child successful and make progress. Asking, can the child make progress towards their IEP goals and participate in the general ed curriculum? An example of a general ed program could be the early care and education setting they are currently attending out in the community. Children that are successful in these early care settings can remain in them if their IEP services can continue to be met there. So we want to discuss the services and how they can be delivered most effectively. Consider if the program is a location that is a reasonable distance from the child's home, if transportation may be needed if the program meets the standards set by the DOE and licensing for providing a placement, and that they provide appropriate learning activities that can promote progress. And the DOE has set some standards that we want to go over. Partnerships with childcare programs are central to Maine's mixed delivery model. Maine Roads to Quality and Rising Stars offer guidance, professional development, and the rating system that help determine that quality. Districts must partner with programs that have a 3-star rating or higher unless the program has an approved waiver. These ratings help ensure that children with IEPs are accessing high-quality early learning environments and meet state standards. This rating signifies a commitment to high-quality care, ensuring that programs meet essential standards for safety, staff qualifications, and early childhood development. A 3-star rating reflects the program's adherence to best practices in early learning, fostering positive child outcomes through structured curriculum, developmentally appropriate activities, and supporting the learning environment. You can apply for a waiver by contacting myself, Jackie Hersom, and I will connect you with a quality specialist through MRTQ in your region to create a plan to move from 2 stars to 3 stars. And during that time, if that person is already a placement option, that will not be interrupted.
All righty, so here's a list of some of the research and some of the guidance out there around IDEA regulations, FAPE, LRE, some of the research around preschool inclusion, and some of the policies that have been identified that are kind of driving a lot of the information from this presentation. We do want to offer you some time for questions, and if you would like to, I think there may be some already in the chat. It looks like there are some things in the chat. So Sandy, do you want to kick us off for sharing questions? You can either unmute or that we can read them out loud from the chat. And that I was going to say that sometimes some of the questions come up that are so specific to each site that it may be best to answer those by your coordinator, but we'll take a shot at it here today. And I'm going to turn this off. We do have our email link on here if you have additional questions. And so I'm going to stop sharing and so that we can get to questions and answers.
Sure, yes. And I'm trying to keep up with the questions in the chat, and I realize I've missed some along the way. So I'd like to just go through them because they might spur more questions. So please feel free to unmute and ask additional questions. So Megan, you had asked about public pre-K for 3-year-olds. So, and I was trying to behind the scenes figure out which district you were from. So I had a frame of mind, a frame of reference here. So if you have, if you don't have a public pre-K, so you don't have public pre-K classrooms.
That's correct.
And you may have community partners, which would be in your mixed delivery system. So that would be family childcare centers, preschools, Head Start, etc. That would be considered a regular education program as well, as long as they have typically developing peers. You know, the ratios of students with disabilities is under 50%, so it's not considered a special education classroom.
I'm going to talk. Oh. You have to turn your volume down. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to talk with your computer.
I'm sorry, I don't have a
lost her voice.
You're fine.
So we understand that, but not all the kids that, so our Head Start can't take in all the kids. They have, you know, they're full with 3-year-olds at this time. So we have a couple of 3-year-olds that are currently just at home. So that's what we're referring to.
Yep. So we can reach out to you individually, but just I'll give this same information to everyone here. And this is not unusual as school districts join cohort, they plan out and think they have enough spaces for all the students with disabilities, and then quickly realize that they may not have enough space for all of the students with disabilities. So this is where you would want to work with either myself or Jackie or Trisha, and look at your mixed delivery system to see if you have programs in your community where students can attend.
We don't.
And you're shaking your head no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
The
parents
closest
are
place is-
choosing to
yeah.
keep them home.
Right.
Okay.
That's setting them.
And we only have programs that are like an hour away from us. We don't have anything local.
Yeah.
So we are
Okay.
sending kids like to Gray which is a pretty long commute.
Yes, and those students are attending a special purpose program, correct? Yes. Yeah. So this is a conversation that we'll probably want to have with you in the near future about how you can look at expanding your offerings either in your district or outside of your district. But really even if you have parents that choose to keep children home, the offer should still be on the table that you have, if that's part of what the IEP team discusses as the appropriate placement for that child, you should have a space for them. And so we can help work with you on that planning for that.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. And anyone else that is hearing the same information and is like, yeah, we're at capacity in our public pre-K and we're not sure what we're going to do if a student or 2 or 4 is referred between now and the end of the year, please reach out. This is part of our technical assistance that we work very closely with our counterparts out on the early learning team and childcare licensing to really help you see how you can expand these offerings in light of that requirement for a placement to provide special education services. So another question that came up that I did not get a chance to offer, I think I skipped right over it, was Lisa Sear had asked if there is any support for families for wraparound childcare. And yes, so one, I'm not sure if this is funding for wraparound childcare or just wraparound childcare in general, but there are some programs that will work very closely with their public pre-K to provide before and after care, or if the public pre-K is a half day, they may offer some half day slots that they are able to fill with students that are going to the AM or the PM. They may be able to offer slots. And then there is the childcare affordability program, which does provide funding. It is an application and it is income eligible, but I will say that it is a very gracious eligibility here in Maine. And so many parents take advantage of that program as well. And Lisa, if I did not answer your question, please speak up and let me know. And then Kate, you had asked a question about who submits the state codes. And I'm assuming that was the reference that Susie had on that sheet that are all the letters and numbers put together. So it's like, Susie, help me with this, regular education, RE, something,
RECOTH 10 or
Yes.
9.
Yes. And that if you look at the way that is built, it's about regular education, other location, 10 hours or more, or 10 hours or less. And so those codes, when you or your registrar or whoever registers students, they add those codes into, I want to say MEDMS, when they register students.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very confusing to me because I feel like I'm the only one who would
know the placements of all of our students, and so I'm not sure who's uploading those codes. They're getting registered in Power School. They have been for a long time, but there's
Yes.
absolutely no way that our data manager would know where kids are placed, and no one's asked me about it. So this is the first I've heard about it. So I'm not sure what codes are being submitted and how they're deciding that, because again, they wouldn't have access to the IEPs. They aren't in the meetings that I'm in, so I'm not sure how that's happening.
Do
Yep,
you,
so
I'm sorry, do you use, did you say you guys are using Power School?
Yep.
So when kids are being registered for special ed on the state side, you have to put that stuff in, which uploads into Synergy, which is where those reports come from. So if it's being put into Power School as sped when the kids are registered,
Yep.
that's how it should be, that's how that percentage is getting uploaded.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think there's a lack of communication because, I mean, they know that they're registering special ed kiddos, but I don't know how they would know which code to put in, because they don't have access to every single student's placement. We have a big district, so
Who's putting your info into Power School?
the admin assistant for each school, but a lot of our kids are placed elsewhere.
Because I know like in ours, my administrative assistant puts everything in, we use Infinite Campus and puts everything into Infinite Campus with the percentile, but I have access to the IEPs, but then that gets
Yeah.
uploaded into Synergy.
Yeah, I'll have to figure that out on my end, because it seems like a confidentiality piece to me too, that people shouldn't necessarily have access to that. So I'll have to think about that on my end. I'd never heard of that before, so.
Sandy, don't we have some enrollment guidance previously done presentations on our site?
yeah, Kate, and I can email you those so you don't have to go search for them, but we had our data team do a whole presentation. You just may have missed it. We had a lot of information going on for the past, year and a half, so I can send those to you directly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So Jackie put in the chat, if anybody here today has any questions about the quality rating improvement system, which is the star rating, which we talk about when we are referencing our community providers, that we have established that 3-star rating threshold or 2 stars with a waiver. You can contact her with any questions about that. And then A. Jones says, we have a student who was originally enrolled in our general education preschool program, and the student is unable to participate due to such significant developmental delays. If the student is not participating in their current placement, is it appropriate to hold a team meeting to review placement needs? Yes. So this is really important. I don't know where you are or who this is, but you can't just dismiss a student from a program because of their disability. You have to have that IEP team meeting where you are talking about what would be that appropriate placement. So remember the continuum of placements that we just shared. If that student needs a different program to support their disability, then that should be that conversation should happen before you dismiss a child from a program. Okay. And Laura Shaw, we are struggling with the LRE section on the IEP. Any guidance? You want to speak up, Laura, and share? And we have a whole smattering of CDS folks here that do this every day, so they can help answer this question as well.
Yeah, so, well, it seems confusing on a couple different fronts. So,
Okay.
so here's an example. We have, so if we have a student who is in our our universal pre-K, and so our universal pre-K offers 10 hours a week for all of our 4-year-olds. So if the student is being pulled out for speech for an hour a week, so would the number of hours be 9 hours with general ed peers, and then it would be 90%, the percentage would be 90%?
It's been a while since I have looked at this section of the IEP, so I'm phoning a friend with my
Yeah,
CDS folks.
anyone from CDS world. So, so there's that, and then if that was like, 9 hours that they're with their peers, then obviously we would be checking their general ed participation with peers is less than 10 hours. So we check that. So that's kind of the easier question, if they're in pre-K, but so then if they're in Head Start, so let's say one of our Head Start locations is 5 hours a day. And the student goes 3 days a week, so that's 15 hours that they are with their general ed peers. And then they have that hour of speech and language, let's say. So that would be 93% that they're with their peers. So I just want to, am I doing that? Are we doing that correctly?
So maybe I'm wrong, Sandy, but my understanding was that we did not need a percentage for under 5, and I have not been putting that in. Because that's how I saw CDS doing it, that we did have to check off the more or less the 10, like the boxes, and then put and then write a description as well. But Suzanne, maybe you can help.
Sandy, would it be okay if I kind of walked people through the decision tree? That it's like real easy. It's a real quick, it will help to answer this question. So let me share my screen here. And we are here. And so the very first question is, does the child attend a regular early childhood program? So how would you answer that question?
Right. So
Yes, right?
yeah. So early Head Start is considered a regular ed childhood program, right? Okay.
Yes. How many hours does the child attend a regular early childhood program? At least 10 or less than 10?
Okay, at least 10.
Where does the child receive the majority of hours of special education and related service? In the regular early childhood program or in some other location?
Regular ed early childhood program.
So that the special ed is delivered in that classroom.
We have a teacher that goes in and does it in the classroom. Yes.
Okay, so then it's there. So they call it category A1, but for us, that would be a regular early childhood REC. And let me see, I think it's REC 10 services, at least 10 hours. So that would be the categories, this one right here.
Okay, so is that correct that we don't need to worry about a percentage?
Correct.
Okay, well, that's helpful. So one more question along those lines. So we have a few students who are, per parent request, are receiving their services in the home. And so in looking at the continuum, the amount of hours with regular ed general ed peers would be less than 10. Is that correct?
It would be 0, right? Because they're not, And there's no obligation for you to provide services in the home unless it's a homebound student, and that's the IEP team decision.
Okay. Interesting. So even with like speech and OT?
Yep. And even students with speech and OT should have that conversation about how they should have that regular education program to support the special education and the achievement towards their goals.
Okay, so yeah, that's always a hard conversation when we do the part C to B. And it's
Yes,
okay,
it is.
that's really good to know. Okay, perfect.
And it will get easier as you are working with those families, you're attending those earlier transfer meeting, transition meetings, and explaining what the process looks like and the conversations that will happen at the IEP team meeting, that you will be talking about a regular education program where their child could attend to work on their goals and receive their services. So it's part of that onboarding conversation that you would have as they move from C to B.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions about that?
I have a question. I don't know if this is the place to ask it, but it's about the child count Excel spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
I know we put referrals on there. And I think we had to upload consents or send consents. Is that to you, Jennifer Hopkins? Do we only have to do that when we're reporting, or are we supposed to send them to you right when we get them?
Either way, if you want to send them to me as you receive them, that's fine. And I can go ahead and put it into a folder, and then I can check when I do the child count.
Okay, now another question about that. So like if we had one that was originally in there when we did the October as a referral, but then they don't qualify, do we just delete them and take them off the list? Or is there something else we have to do?
You can leave them on the list, and there's a category for if they no longer receive. I don't have the sheet in front of me to know the exact terminology, but if they're discharged, then you can put yes and that they did not qualify for services, and then I'll move that to the bottom of the spreadsheet for you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Bonnie has a question about, and Bonnie, we may have already answered this when I was speaking about it before, about until slots are available at school, should services be provided at school as outpatient? So once again, this is about looking at your capacity for providing that general education preschool experience for students with disabilities. If you aren't able to do that, you need to reach out to us so we can help support you with coming in and helping you look at what you have for resources within your district or outside your district. If you are providing just those related services because you don't have a program, that also puts you in a compensatory services position that you should be discussing and calculating so that you can provide that to the family, to the child, and make sure that it's documented on the written notice, in a written notice. Yeah, it looks like Susie dropped in the least restrictive environment codes, the document. Oh, Bonnie says the link did not work. Can somebody check that for us? Okay, and Lisa, you got that?
I checked Sandy and it worked.
Okay. Bonnie, can you check that again? If not, we'll email it to you as well. And Jackie put in a link for the childcare affordability that you could share with families. Dan affirmed that there's no percentage needed on that LRE section of the IEP. Oh, Bonnie. Okay. So I think we have cleaned up the chat from all the questions, but we would like to open it up to see if anyone has any other questions for our team. And remember, we have our CDS team here. We have our early learning team here. I think we might have some cohort 1 folks here. So So please feel free to ask any questions that you might have. Also, you can always reach out to either myself, Jackie, Trisha. We have a whole team here that is willing to answer questions for you at any time.
Sandy, I had a question about team attendance, team meeting attendance.
Okay, yeah, I
Um,
skipped over that. I'm so sorry.
Did you want to skip over it or should
No,
we just do
nope.
it?
I think I asked you, but
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead, ask the question.
Are you sure? Because if you
Yeah.
wanted to skip over it, maybe we shouldn't talk, Just kidding. So my question, I'm new to Maine, and so my question is, in the pre-K world, who should be at the table for the intake meeting? Like, what's the legal requirement, and what's the legal requirement at the IEP table? Because I don't always have a special ed teacher, and I don't always have, like, if I have a student that's just getting medical model services, but I'm writing an IEP, I'm really struggling. Yeah, so I guess let's just start with that. You don't
Okay,
need to hear all my struggles.
can you clarify for me when you say intake meeting, is
Mhm.
that an official IEP meeting?
Yes, so that's the referral that's come in, and that's our very first meeting when we're talking about the referral and talking about what evals we might need to do.
Yeah, so that special education teacher is a requirement for the IEP team meetings.
Okay, so we have 29 openings in my district, and so we have 0 special ed teachers at the pre-K level.
So is this one that your CDS support and service hub person is supporting you with? Because
Yeah,
you can also
so I
we're
should
doing,
have that person sign in under that hat, or myself. I guess I could sign
yep,
in under that hat too, but I haven't been.
yep.
Okay,
As long as you inform the parents of that, best practice to inform the parents so that they have an understanding what your roles are.
okay.
And, but yes, it
And then
is,
one of us also should be signing in as a gen ed teacher?
if you have that certification and you're representing,
And if we
because
don't, then we need someone at the table that is.
yes.
Okay, well, we are a little out of compliance there. Don't tell the state.
No, really, who would that be? But I just want to swing back, and we don't have to do this in front of everyone, but maybe we could connect about what you were considering the medical model. So I want to just refer back to that continuum that
Yep,
we just shared in this presentation. And remember it's really not an educational model.
no.
Services only is a very restrictive setting
Mm-hmm.
on the continuum. And those decisions are made by the IEP team because of the child's disability, circumstances that they would only receive services.
Oh, yeah.
Other than that,
Yeah. This is
you
the
need to,
parent. Mm-hmm. I agree. I'm sorry. Let me be quiet. Go ahead.
no, that's good to clarify that. And once again, this is one of the nuances of early childhood special education, right?
Right.
You're always working towards that child being in a regular education setting, and you're documenting on the written notice all of those pieces that the parent is sharing why they can't attend or why they're not attending.
So just to clear this up for me, if a child is at home or attending a daycare, we still have to have a general ed teacher at the meeting?
Yep. Well, the childcare would be the general education setting, right?
Right.
But yes, you have to have those IEP team members at the IEP team,
So
because the goal would always be on that continuum that you're always working towards that regular education setting, just like you would for your K-12 students who are not in regular education. your conversations are always about how can we get them into that least restrictive environment.
So we have only a 4-year-old gen ed program, but we are offering services to 3 and 4-year-olds. Is it okay to have that pre-K teacher be the gen ed teacher for that meeting?
Absolutely, yes. And we, I mean, it would be appropriate for if a child were in a childcare setting or family childcare setting, your YMCA, your programs that those teachers could represent for general education as well, because they're the ones that are working with that child every day. So they have that information that the IEP team needs about the child.
Perfect. Okay.
So Sandy, to that point, like in the big school world, I would never put those people on my invitation because then I would be responsible for paying those people to attend the meeting. I don't, I might make a call or I might have the parent invite those people, but I was always very judicious about how
Oh, we lost you there, Christine. But I can answer that. That would be part of your MOU or your contract with those providers. If that is that general education setting for that child where they're receiving their special education services, you would have that formal agreement with them to kind of spell out, are they attending IEP meetings? When are you going to schedule them so they can attend? Are you paying them to attend those meetings as well? So those are all things that you work out through either an MOU or a contract. But it would be appropriate, we have in the CDS world, to pay our professionals for their time to attend meetings. And it would also be appropriate to expect them to bring information, like you are going to want them to bring progress updates. What is this child? How does this apply to their goals on their IEP? What are you seeing for growth? What are you seeing for struggles? They are going to be your, your eyes on that child. So you can expect, that it's reciprocal, I guess I want to say.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. That's growth for us. We don't have MOUs in place for those other childcare settings.
Yes, and we do have some templates in our resource or Google Drive folder.
Sure. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Oh, Corlin, that's a great question. I don't think we're necessarily asking you to complete it 7 times. I think you could look at it.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. She works for an AOS, which, Christine, you may not be familiar with what an AOS is, but it is a school district that's made up of many different towns. And so no, I will make that decision for you. No, you can just do one, but just take into consideration all of your pre-Ks that might be on a different level. So typically we get the readiness assessments and there's usually little notes on there that, kind of help you, but also help us understand, like, some of your schools might be doing things differently. So you could note that on there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And
so
Holly,
is an AOS a non-unified district? So each district remains its own district but it's a conglomeration. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Just letting everyone know that Holly did throw the link to the resource folder in there. And then the other part to this resource folder is if you have created an MOU, a contract, parent letters, any sort of child find information that you're putting out there, any sort of information that would be helpful for your peers here today, and also Cohort 1, also folks that are thinking of joining Cohort 3 or Cohort 4, we would love for you to share your information so that everyone, when they are thinking, like Christine's probably thinking, okay, now I got to think about developing MOUs or contracts. It would be great if I didn't have to create that myself. and can go into the folder and see some templates for that other people have already created. I think you can upload directly to the folder, but if you can't, just email it to either myself or Jennifer or Holly, any one of us, and we will upload it into the drive. Any further questions? Great conversations today. These are great questions. Well, I thank all of you for what you are doing for our children, our preschoolers out there. I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving next week, time with your family and time to rest and relax. You're all doing a great job. We appreciate all the hard work. And please reach out if you have any specific situations that you just want to walk through. And once again, we're here to help you. So thank you.